Hello and welcome to Learn City. I am Isioma Egbaje and I will be taking you on government. Today's topic we'll be discussing on legitimacy. Let's get started. Legitimacy. A legitimate government is one that is constitutionally elected and is acceptable to the populace. Now, you can see the keyword acceptable, elected. Now, there is a process for something to be called legitimate. It must have gone through a process of approval. So that is what legitimacy is all about. It's all about approval and acceptance. So a legitimate government is one that is approved and accepted by the populace. Now that we're familiar with the term legitimacy, we'll now go into the factors that determine legitimacy. Now, there are 5 factors that determine legitimacy. Popular participation. For a political system to be accorded legitimacy, the various interest groups, such as political parties, pressure groups, etc., must be allowed to take part. Now, everyone who is within that state have an obligation to take part in the political activities for a political system to be legitimate, because democracy cuts across constitution. It involves political parties, it involves pressure groups, it involves election. So for a political system to be accorded that legitimacy, every organ or every system must work or perform their duty or must be responsible to take part in politics so that they can come together and agree on a system. Now, the second factor that determines legitimacy is popular support. A government is said to be legitimate if it receives the popular support of the system, of the citizen rather. Just that is why we have election. We use election to know the majority's candidates. Through election, we have the approval of who the masses want. So popular support has to do with majority support. It has to do with who the people want. So a government is said to be legitimate if it receives the popular support of the citizen. Now, how do they get that? Through elections. Now, the third factors that determine legitimacy is good government. People are called legitimacy to a government which meets up their expectation in governance. I hope you understand what that means. When a government does its duty, it carries out its work, the people would willingly accept that legitimacy or would willingly give that legitimacy to that government. Now, good government is also a factor that determines legitimacy. Now, another factor that determines legitimacy is foreign diplomacy. The foreign policy adopted by a government of a country determines the legitimacy other nations will accord to such a government. So it is very important that the foreign policy adopted by a government is looked into, because that way other countries can be able to accord some respect to that government. Now, the last factor that determines legitimacy is leadership. A leader that performs credibly well in office will make people to accept his regime as a legitimate one. That is very explanatory, but I would still explain. When a leader does his work well, his followers will definitely give him his credits. They would want to have him and approve of his work or everything he does. So that's what leadership entails. a leader that performs credibly well, when he performs his duties, his obligations, and does everything timely, he would be accepted in that regime as a legitimate one. Now that we're familiar with the factors that determine legitimacy, or can you give me some of the factors? Exactly, yeah. They include foreign diplomacy, leadership, popular participation, popular support, and good government.